world at bay.
Dude.
It's April 18th, 2020.
6 agents with troubled pasts must come together under the covert operation Perennial.
While the world quarantines, we will be gathering
This is
intel.
cute.
Can the agents
Cool. Agent Samael, and is generally native chaos. Hi, buddy. How you doing? I'm good, except I'm noticing that the name on our hero is still Roberto Cofresi, and it's definitely not him. It's okay. I appreciate you running all of our technical things. You sweet, beautiful human being that you are. Thank you so much. Yes. So we will be discussing Ada Lovelace, who is basically the reason we can do any of this. She was a mathematician in the 1800s, and she's pretty fucking cool. We're gonna get into it in a minute. As you might know if you've seen this before, on here, as you should know, I find an obscure historical figure who I think is important that we don't ever talk about for a plethora of reasons that I'm sure you can imagine. And then I tell you about them, and then we turn them into D&D characters because why would we not? This is the Double Nerd Show, of course we do. So here we go. Ada Lovelace was born Augusta Ada Byron on December 10th in 1815 in London. So she was born to her mother, Annabella Milbank, who was a well-educated mathematician, kind of a higher-born woman, which was pretty rare to have like a well-educated woman in that time. Whatever. And then also her dad was the poet Lord George Gordon Byron, who was, as I said, a poet and a notorious horny boy. This is the only child he had in wedlock. He had two other daughters, one of whom shares my name, which is neat. I mean, she did die of typhus or malaria at age 5, but still cool, I think. I guess. Anyway, her dad was expecting a glorious boy, but was, of course, disappointed when she was a girl. Also, he had a habit of not calling his kids by their given names. Allegra was a name he gave to his second daughter, who was Alba at birth. Augusta is Ada's given name, which is named after Byron's half-sister, but he's the one who started calling her Ada. So he just kind of disregards anything, which is fine. Also, we'll talk about Augusta, his sister, in a little bit. Right? I mean, he wasn't around for a lot of either of their lives, but did you piece the fuck out? Yeah, that's the that's the mood. So yeah, he does that, and then as I just insinuated, he and his wife separate a few weeks after Ada's born, and a few months after that, Byron leaves England, and Ada never sees him again because he dies in Greece when she is 8 years old. So he kind of like immortalizes their parting in a poem which goes, "Is thy face like thy mother's, my fair child? Ada, sole daughter of my house and heart." That's it. That's all. That's like all he has to say about her. Yeah, that's it. So at the time in England, the law was that full custody of the kids would go to the father in a separation. But since Byron wasn't into it, he just had his sister keep him updated on his kid, and that was the scope of his involvement with her. He was like, "Yeah, it's fine. I'm gonna go like have another kid, then I'm gonna go to Greece, maybe have another kid, and then I'll die. Don't worry about it." So yeah, so her mom is pretty understandably bitter about all of this, and she's trying to keep her kid sort of like away from the poetic flights of fancy that Byron was prone to. So she, from a very early age, pushes her towards, like math and logic and reason and all this kind of stuff. Ada also didn't see a portrait of her father's face until she was 20 years old.
Damn.
Which is a whole new level of petty that I appreciate. Yeah.
Also, side note, I realized I had not put my microphone on the stream, so just want to point out that
okay,
I fixed
bud.
that.
It's okay. We're doing our best tonight. It's been rough. We're going though. Yes. So okay. So Ada's mom is on her own. She's pretty pissed about Lord Byron being an absolute fuck off. And she kind of rails against him publicly for his immoral behavior, which is a pretty big deal because everyone's already kind of on the father's side in this time in society. So so the fact that she's making even more of a stink about it continually doesn't really help them that much. And add to that, her mom wasn't super interested in her too much. Like there were a couple letters where she called her an it as a child.
Jeez.
Yeah, right. So it's just she like kept a good face for the public, so it looked like she was very doting. But it was mainly Ada's maternal grandmother who cared for her, and she was very doting and lovely. So and also Lady Byron had people like her friends keep an eye on her daughter in her teenage years to make sure that she wasn't like morally deviant and following in her father's footsteps, which has to be very disconcerting. Also on that similar note, her mom was uninterested but also overbearing. So very, very conflicting messages from mom here. And Ada was also very ill as a child. She had headaches that affected her sight. She was paralyzed briefly with a case of measles. She was on bed rest for a full year. All of this coming also from her mother's kind of like, well, if you're in bed, you can't do anything bad, so just stay there. A mess.
I was going to just keep her in the attic, man.
I essentially, she was just like, no, you stay with my mom. You don't leave bed. You learn math. Those are my 3 rules, and that's it. Anyway, so by 1831, when she was about 15, she was able to walk with crutches. She could walk before in her life, but like there was a period in that year that she had to use crutches to walk, and eventually she didn't need them anymore. But despite all of this nonsense, she was super into her studies. It was all very like math, like I said, math and logic based. And by age 12, she decided that she wanted to fly. So she researched materials for wings. She studied the anatomy of birds and the proportion of their wings to their bodies. She even wrote a book called Phrenology, which had like plates of designs and like all of her
What?
findings about like what she might need. Isn't that the cutest shit?
Is this a book I can go buy?
I don't know, but I hope so. Like a little like imagine a little 12-year-old on bed rest just like, I'm going to fly and this is how I'm going to do it, and these are the kind of like materials I'm going to use for the wings. It just warms my
And
heart.
write a whole book about it?
Right. And like have written out designs and like sketches and plans. Like she wanted to even add a compass to the design so that she could cut across the country in the most direct route. Which is so sweet. Anyway, so in early 1833, when she is 17, she has an affair with a tutor and tries to elope, but she gets caught and her mom freaks out and covers the scandal, as we would expect from her mother.
Great.
She never met Allegra, but she did have contact with Elizabeth Medora Lee, who was either her half-sister or her cousin, or both.
I'm not going to think about that too hard.
Yeah, there are very many there is speculation, pretty heavy speculation and potentially like evidence for the fact that Lord Byron may or may not have been in an incestuous relationship with his half-sister Augusta. And Elizabeth may have been a product of that. We don't know for sure. Anyway,
But
yeah. There's a distinct possibility that was either her half-sister and her cousin, or it could be just her cousin. So in adulthood, Ada became very close with another one of her tutors named Mary Somerville, who introduced her to Charles Babbage in 1833. Charles Babbage was a mathematician of the time. I'll talk about him more later. But she and Ada and Mary were very, very close friends throughout Ada's life. And she outlived Ada by 20 years and died at 91.
Wow.
So wild. A quick little thing about Mary Somerville. She was a Scottish scientist, writer, and another self-proclaimed polymath. She studied mathematics and astronomy specifically. She and another contemporary scientist, Caroline Herschel, were the first women nominated to be in the Royal Astronomical Society, which was a big deal in England at the time. And she conducted experiments about the relationship between lights and magnetism. And then I had to stop reading about it because if I didn't, I was going to get distracted by Mary Somerville, and we were going to talk about two people, and this episode would have been 3 hours long. So I made myself stop. Mary Somerville was super interesting when I was reading about her. Go check her out.
You'll get to him.
And then there's also Charles Babbage, who was a philosopher and a mathematician, an inventor, and a mechanical engineer. So he worked on like kind of like a very, very basic original concept for a digital programmable computer. And he also basically broke the Vigenère cipher. Just because he could. Very smart people. On a quick side note, I am very good at history things, and I'm very good at like language things, and it doesn't seem like that, but I like that's something I feel like I'm good at. Math is not one of those things. Aaron's good at math. So when we get to the math things, Aaron's going to talk about things. I'm going to say the very broad things, and then Aaron might be able to explain them a little better than I will, because even with my research, I have no clue what I was reading.
You just let me know what you want me to expound upon.
Yes, please. Anyway, so back to Ada for now. She also became with a ton of other scientists of the day, including Andrew Cross, who did early experimentation about what could be done with electricity. Sir David Brewster, he worked in physical optics, which was mainly like studying the polarization of light and the discovery of the Brewster's angle, which is where the polarization and the light waves mesh and basically looks like things are invisible. That's like with polarized lenses, right? How you have to like turn your head with polarized lenses.
Yeah, I'm hesitant to say honestly because I don't know off the top of my head and I don't want to be wrong.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I looked it up and I did the reading and I think that's what it was, but honestly, science and math I love, but it takes me a long time to get them. Charles Wheatstone as well, who invented the concertina, which is the musical instrument, the stereoscope, which was you remember when you were a kid and you had those like goggles that you put over your eyes and you click it and they would have a disc. Yeah. He made that a thing, which was a device that shows you two of the same image in either eye and they appear as a 3D image. And also he created the Playfair cipher. She also worked with Michael Faraday, who did electromagnets and electrochemistry, and the author Charles Dickens. So she was very popular in court. She was super brilliant, and she went often, and people were all about her. And so math became like her big focus when she was 17. She had like multiple tutors from multiple different like schools. William Friend, William King, and the aforementioned Mary Somerville. And so she's like math focused. And then in July of 1835, she marries William the 8th Baron King, not King as in like a ruler king, but his last name is King. And so she becomes Lady King, and they have 3 kids. Byron, named after her father, Anna Isabella, who they called Annabella after her mom for some reason, and then Ralph Gordon, who was also named after Ada's father. And then Ada had a bout of sickness for a few months after Anna Isabella was born, which you would expect from a person who's kind of chronically had this issue. And then they find out that Ada is a descendant of the Barons Lovelace, which is something important in Britain, and it has like land things. I have really no interest in social hierarchy nonsense, so I didn't really look this up. I looked it up kind of perfunctorily to be like, this is a place, I think. No clue, but her husband becomes Earl of Lovelace, which makes her the Countess of Lovelace, and then boom, there's her name, Ada Lovelace. Yeah, that's all I want to say about how she got her name and the place, because hierarchical society bullshit doesn't interest me. So, 1843 and 1844, Ada's mother, who is still very much involved in her life, sends William Benjamin Carpenter, who was a physiologist, an invertebrate zoologist, and a physician, to be her children's tutor and Ada's moral instructor, and also he like tutors her a little bit too, because he has different like areas of expertise than she does. But that doesn't work out super great because he falls for her and he keeps trying to like get her to run away with him, and she eventually just cuts him off and she's like, no, we're done. And so he's not the kid's tutor anymore and she gets a different tutor.
What is it with these English tutors, man?
don't know. I don't understand. Usually you're tutoring children. Get your heads out of your asses.
Like, can what? Does being a tutor mean you can't control yourself?
Are tutors just inherently horny? Have they been like looking at books
Must
for so
be.
long? They're like, I need a person. Come on, dude. Get your shit together. Have a little bit of self-control and don't be a creep. Anyway, on that random note from Aaron and I, she also apparently loved to gamble and formed a gambling syndicate with her dude friends.
Of course she did.
Right? So she bets on horses, and she even tries to create like a mathematic model.
Of course she did.
Yeah,
Okay.
right? For like more successful large bets. It doesn't go well, and she ends up deeply in debt.
Of course it did.
Which we saw coming. She's also seen as socially scandalous for her relaxed views on extramarital affairs, which is hilarious because she's like, no, fuck this tutor, but like, don't like actively fuck him, but I'm not interested in him. But she did have an affair with Andrew Cross's son, John. I don't know.
Oh, I think I got her husband and her dad confused for a second, so don't mind what I was about to say, but
oh god. I think this is where her dad's coming in. This is where her like father's her father's influence is appearing. Anyway. Yeah, so she's kind of scandalous in society, and I'm pretty sure that doesn't help her case with her mother.
But like she's an adult, so
exactly, like her mom shouldn't be like this up in her business. Not that I'm saying she should be having extramarital affairs, but like she's a grown-ass woman. She can make her own choices, whatever they may be. So it's the 1840s now. She's working with Augustus de Morgan on some advanced calculus, as well as Bernoulli's number. Aaron, what the fuck is Bernoulli's numbers?
Fuck, I don't know off the top of my head. At one point I knew. At this moment I don't know. I spent all of my time understanding what these Babbage engines are, so that I could explain those. But
good. I wrote it down somewhere. I don't remember where I.
You know what? Keep talking. I'll Google it and I'll read one sentence and I'm sure I'll remember what it is.
Yeah, Aaron's gonna come back to us on Bernoulli's number because I read multiple things about it and remember nothing. So hold please while we do that. I'll tell you that right now though, she often integrated poetry and science with her math, and she kind of thought that like intuition and imagination were a super valuable part of applying the mathematics and scientific concepts. So like marrying those two was what made her kind of stick out from others, because for the most part people were very much like, what's in the book is what's most important. What's like you like emotions and imagination and all this is over here. Math and science and logic is all over here, and it doesn't mesh. And she kind of found a way to mesh the two, which is why, you know, what kind of leads her to the eventual notes she has on the analytic engine, which we'll talk about soon. I'm getting through her life first, and then we're going to talk about her work, because if I tried to mesh them, it would have blown my mind personally. Aaron, do you have anything on Bernoulli's number?
Yeah, basically it's just a sequence of rational numbers that comes up a lot in different places.
So it's like it's a thing, but it's too often to be a coincidence, but it's just like they don't have anything else for it.
It's just a really specific sequence of rational numbers.
Fascinating. Well, there you go. So she has information about Bernoulli's numbers. I'm sure I wouldn't understand them even if I knew what that information was. If you are a science or math-minded person and that interests you, please go find her notes. They, I'm sure, are very easy to find. The internet is a wonderful place. We have her to thank for it. Anyway, so she's also super interested in metaphysics, which is
pretty common in Victorian era.
Yeah, especially and so but like, why should logic be everything there is? Like, if we've found logical reasons for all this other stuff, why can't we have logical reasons for things that seem illogical right now? It was her kind of approach to it, which I think is very interesting and very open-minded of her. And then Ada dies at 36 on November 27th, 1852. From uterine cancer, which is very sad. At the end of her life, her mom's basically taken over everything: who she sees, what she reads, what she does. She kind of excludes Ada from all her friends, cuts them off. She loses contact with her husband after she tells him something that made him leave her side. No one's really sure what it was. And then she has a religious transformation, which leads her to repent from her misconducts, and then she's buried next to her father. And that's her life, essentially. Is this very like big, smart top, and then her mom comes in and is very controlling again.
So strange.
Yeah, it's kind of like heartbreaking too,
Yeah.
because she's clearly brilliant, and her mom's just like, no, I'm in charge of this now. Ugh, it just rubs me weird. Anyway, on to her work now. The important things. I mean, her life was very important too. Her like how she lived and everything was important, but the things we're here to hear about. So as we know, she was super into math and science, and metaphysics. So we'll talk about the metaphysics part of it first, which is phrenology, which is basically the study of the bumps on your skull to predict mental traits, as well as mesmerism or animal magnetism. It's essentially like midi-chlorians or the force or whatever. It's an invisible natural force that's in all living things that could have physical effects like healing. So why not? Why couldn't that be a thing? If Bernoulli's number pops up everywhere,
As far as they knew, well, sure.
Yeah. So she even tries to create like a mathematical model for how the brain makes thoughts happen and like connects the nerve, like how the nerves connect to feelings, and called it like the calculus of the nervous system, which is insane to me because I still don't think that we fully understand that in these days.
Getting closer.
We're getting closer.
There's some gray areas, but we know probably more than you think.
Yeah, but like it's just very interesting to me that like way back when she was like, okay, well I can math this. I can math this feelings thing. I love it. So as we stated previously, she meets Charles Babbage in 1833, and a month later, she's still like 17. Maybe she's still 17 because it's in June. He invites Ada to see his difference engine, which is an automatic mechanical calculator created to tabulate polynomial functions. Do you want to talk about what?
Sure. So the difference, it was basically it was like the calculator you have on your desk right now, only it was a bunch of gears. It was a mechanical thing, and it had little dials that you could put numbers in, which were basically just the coefficients of the polynomials that you did in algebra. So you have like x blah, x cubed, x squared, that whole thing. Yeah. You got little dials, you put the coefficients on. There was a little something you push to make it, or I don't know if it was like a crank or a lever or something, but right. you put the numbers in, then you did something to make it do its thing, and then on a different set of gears it spat out the results.
The answer. Wild. I get, especially in this one, I got very caught up in people make things do things, and I don't understand it, which sounds very simplistic, but just like the fact that like, okay, we have this mathematical thing that we can do. I'm going to create a machine that does this faster for me.
You want to know?
I think the fact that anything exists is wild. So
you want to know what's even crazier? Like you look at everyone looked at the difference engine. They're like, oh my god, this is so crazy. Yeah, it turns out the Greeks did it like 2,000 years before.
They did. It's called the Antikythera mechanism from around 200 BCE. It's a hand-powered orrery that's used to predict astronomical positions and eclipses decades in advance. So it's basically the world's oldest analog computer.
And you want to know what's even crazier?
Yes.
We still can't replicate that thing. People have been trying, and they can't figure out how it works.
I love, but I hate. My brain can't take it. It's so. What must we have forgotten in the entire history of human beings that would blow our minds today? Just this one made my brain explode a lot. Not just because it was math things, but also because it was like, people make things happen. I know this sounds insane. It sounds like I'm very high. I'm not. This is just things I think about on a daily basis.
I mean, it'd be okay if you were, but...
I mean, no. But this isn't even me high thinking. This is just me regular thinking. Anyway, so she hangs out with Babbage a lot. Babbage is cool. They're both very similarly minded. The machine fascinates her, and in turn, he thinks she's brilliant and intellectual and analytical. And he really likes working with her and like respects her knowledge. And he calls her the Enchantress of Numbers because why not?
Sounds like a rejected Marvel supervillain.
The Enchantress of Numbers. She just like throws math at you. And
Yeah.
Like, no, I got rid of this 5 years ago. I haven't thought about like math like this in literally 5 years. So this was a lot. So about 10 years after she meets Babbage, she spends 9 months translating an Italian mathematician's article about a new machine. His name's Luigi Menabrea, and the machine is the analytical engineer. So he hasn't made it yet. It's just kind of like the concept of it, which is basically incorporating math logic and then control flow and condition branching and loops and integrated it's basically trying to create a computer as we would understand one today.
It was a computer as we understand one today.
Yeah, it doesn't have a screen, it doesn't have, like buttons and video chat or whatever, but it does the computing. It is a computer. And it's got a finger in like the Alan Turing pie, which we were going to talk about him, and then I switched to her for some reason. I don't even remember why. But at some point we're going to talk about Alan Turing. So basically, it's like the logical structure of the analytical engine is what we have now, just without a screen, basically. So as she translates, she adds her own notes, and the notes end up being 3 times longer than the article itself, because of course they do. And they include methods for calculating the sequence of Bernoulli's number using the analytical engine, and explain the difference between like the original difference engine. And she's just got like all these like thoughts, and she's integrating all of her ideas into something more than just a computing machine, a machine to compute. And this is basically the first computer program, making her the first computer programmer, which is neato mosquito.
I mean, objectively the first, or not objectively, ostensibly, because it wasn't like it was not like she, went to a coffee shop and dusted her laptop off and wrote some JavaScript. But
like, as we understand programming and computing, that's basically what she did.
It was a sequence of, she laid out like basic, computers have these things that we call instructions, which is just, hey, do this thing with these numbers. And she stepped that out for, I think, not just the Bernoulli numbers, but I think there were a bunch of different like little pieces of software that she wrote. I mean, they didn't call it software then.
Right.
They didn't
Ancient software.
It's the next hit Nick Cage movie.
If that's National Treasure 3, I'm here for it. Honestly, whatever. Give me more National Treasure, I say. So she does make a very clear distinction in her notes that this is not artificial intelligence. It doesn't originate anything new. It simply follows the orders it's given and shares the data. So there are a lot of people that try and rebut that and say that like it's technically information that didn't exist before, so it is artificial intelligence, including Alan Turing. He also was like, no, this is definitely artificial intelligence. And she's like, no, I gave it data and it did what it was supposed to do. Like it's not coming up with new thoughts. Which is
weird because Alan Turing invented the Turing test.
Yes, he did. So, he's a complicated guy. We'll talk about him. Don't worry. He's cool. I like Alan Turing. Anyway, so she translates the paper and gives her notes, and they're published in the September 1843 scientific memoir under the initials AAL, which is probably Augusta Ada Lovelace, because, at the time she probably wouldn't have received any attention or credit for being a woman, so she had to do it, and you know what it is.
Yeah.
So in her notes, she also kind of sees that there is potential for the analytical engineer to deal with data that isn't just numbers.
Yeah.
To quote, objects found whose mutual fundamental relations could be expressed by those of the abstract science of operations, and which should be susceptible to adaptation to the action of operating notation and mechanism of the engine. She's literally just imagining a modern day computer more than 100 years before it's been
Right.
possible.
And you know what's crazy is because, yeah, like you're saying, she was the first one to realize that, you could use something like this to not only, crunch numbers,
Right.
but you could do it. She specifically gave the example of something like this could be used to make music.
Yeah.
Which I thought was super cool. Like, whoa, she predicted Pro Tools was going to exist before, anyone thought of.
She's the reason you make our cool fucking music, dude.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, if if she didn't lay that
one of the reasons.
if she didn't lay that framework out, I don't think the world would look the same way that it does right now.
Yeah, I think eventually, like, the knowledge is there, and the intuition is probably there too, but it was just, I think the fact that it happened when it happened is the reason that history's the whole butterfly effect, man. Anyway, I should stop rambling about these because I get excited about things. So this all harkens back to her imagination and intuition have a place in science. It can't all just be like one thing, which is, I think, is a nice reminder to everyone to, like, broaden your horizons or whatever. I dropped my drink. Hold on. Good thing it had a lid. It fell again. It doesn't matter.
Good work,
I
Laker.
put it on a slanted object twice, like a dumbass, and here we are. This is my own fault. Anyway. So she's the inspiration for countless books and plays and comics. She's been featured as a character in super different shows, including Doctor Who. There are biopics and documentaries about her. There is cryptocurrency named after her, computer languages, awards, university buildings, microsatellites. Like, all of these things carry her name. She and Charles Babbage are pages in British passports. There is an academy called the Ada Developers Academy, which is a year-long software development intensive that is, like, intentionally to diversify gender within the programming game, which I think is super cool and lovely. And definitely something that I think she would feel very proud to have her name on. And Ada Lovelace Day is the second Tuesday in October in England, and in the US it is October 9th, with the purpose of raising the profile of women in STEM and showing role models to younger people.
There's also a web store called Adafruit, where a lot of people like me go to buy our little who's its and what's its.
Neat. I didn't know that. That's so cool.
Yeah, you should check it out.
I have no use for anything there, I don't think, but I will.
It's cool.
I
You
just
just
want to
look
see
at it. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that is Our Lady Ada Lovelace, who is kind of the reason we're here. So Aaron, do you wanna tell me what you built?
Sure.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think let's face it. We both thought the same two thoughts.
Yep.
One was, is she an artificer or is she a wizard? And
I also have those thoughts.
I decided that she was a wizard.
Nice.
Because, I mean, artificers are like, they make things, they like get their hands on something and they make it. She was more on like the
brain
theoretical side. So I'm like, if D&D has mathematicians, they're wizards. And then I got to thinking about, well, what kind of a wizard is she? And I decided enchantment, because it's like enchantment is kind of like a D&D version of writing software.
Yeah.
And she wrote the first software.
Oh man,
Ergo.
I like that. That makes so much sense to me, dude.
I mean, obviously I made her intelligence super high. So I went with like 20 intelligence. What other defining features do I need to point out on my...
What are like the defining stats and skills?
So Arcana, which is math, D&D math.
Magic math.
History and investigation.
Nice.
I don't know.
What
Like, what do I?
did you give her? What background
I went with a noble background, which just it seemed
Makes
obvious. Just because of her. I mean, she was.
Yeah. Did you have any feats, or did you just pump everything?
I did. I gave her keen mind.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Right, which gives you a little bump on intelligence.
Yep.
It's it just means you're super smart, and that you hate your dungeon master. But other than that,
Yeah, I shudder for the day one of us is like, I'm gonna take Keen Mind because I think whoever's running the game is going to explode.
It's gonna be me, and I'm gonna say I can do whatever I want now.
Fair point. Fair point.
Spell wise, I went with like stuff like minor illusion.
Makes sense.
What's the other? Phantasmal force.
Force. Yep.
Anything
I got
where
that one
you're
too.
like, I guess
Mental.
I guess where I'm going is the power of imagination. You know.
Imagination. Yeah. Any other major spells that kind of jump out at you for her?
I tried to not do like any combat-y kind of one. She didn't really seem much of like she didn't seem super interested in violence.
Right.
So I didn't really. They're all what's the cantrip that I can never pronounce?
Thaumaturgy.
Thaumaturgy. Thaumaturgy and prestidigitation. Or you kind of just make a neat little thing happen.
Noise. Yeah. Nice. What did you end up dumping for her?
So I went with Constitution.
Yep.
Because I mean, she was unfortunately ill a lot of the times. I went with as like a secondary high stat. I went with Charisma.
Hey, me too. Works well for in the court.
Yeah, so I mean, she seemed popular.
Yeah. Did you roll hit points for her just out of curiosity?
I did. She's level.
That's where she was her hit point at level 10.
She's level 10 and she has 32 hit points.
Oh boy, that minus in con is rough.
Yeah. There's no if you're actually playing D, there's no reason you should do that.
Oh no, this is a build that I was like, this is not something I would ever build ever for a game ever. However, to be historically accurate, this is what I'm doing. Any fun like enchantment things that she gets as an enchantment wizard?
Honestly, the enchantment like as like a subclass, it's not my favorite.
Yeah.
There's not a lot. I mean, you can do hypnotic gaze, where you look at
cool.
you look at something and charm them. Hypnosis.
As you do.
I don't know if that's relevant to her, but I have it.
I think it's like kind of like beguiling because everyone was kind of enchanted with her.
Sure.
So
I mean, yeah, that's true. That's every account of her. It seems that's something that someone that gets mentioned.
Like glowing and very interested in
Or
everything
the
she's doing.
enchantress of numbers.
Yes. Dude, that's awesome. Did you have anything like any special like items for her or like languages or anything like that?
So I was like, what, she was programming before we had like programming languages as a thing, which means that basically she was writing in assembly language, which is the code that code gets compiled into. So you write your code and then it gets turned into this other code called machine language, and that's basically what she was doing, was machine language or assembly. So I was like, what's the weirdest, like most difficult to understand language in D&D? So she can speak Draconic.
Nice.
That's
Oh, it's so good. Dude, that's awesome. I love enchantment wizard for her. That makes a lot of sense to me. I went very convoluted.
Good. Love it.
Very convoluted. I too had the thought of, okay, wizard or artificer. And I was like, no, you don't get to just choose wizard or artificer. That's like, no, you don't get to do that.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, all right, do a little bit of either one of them, but you have to add something else in there. And then I had a lot of something else in there and very little wizard. So she is a wizard 2, warlock.
Warlock. Nice.
So I gave her Order of the Scribes as a wizard. And then the patron is the Seeker for warlock, which is just like a voracious knowledge monster, basically. Which makes sense to me. So she gets all kinds of nuts shit. Her charisma was a 17, her intelligence was 18. I didn't do any feats. I just gave her stat bumps the entire time. I also dumped her her constitution. And she's a sage, so she gets 5 languages common, elvish, sylvan, primordial, and deep speech. I went a similar direction of like coding is complicated, but primordial and deep speech for me.
Nice.
So as a where is it? There it is. As a Order of the Scribes wizard, she can make a special magic quill that doesn't require ink and it just writes in the color you want it to. And instead of it taking 2 hours per spell level to copy a spell down, it takes 2 minutes, which is very nice.
Just whip it out.
Speedy computation. And then she also gets an awakened spellbook, which is basically she has a sentient spellbook, which is horrifying.
It's called Phrenology.
That's what it was. Okay, that's done. It's your Phrenology book from childhood. That's absolutely what it is. So she can use it as a spellcasting focus. She can. So here's the weirdest one. She can, if you cast a wizard spell with a spell slot, you can temporarily replace its damage type with a type that appears in another spell in your spellbook, which magically alters the spell's formula for this casting. The latter spell must be the same level of the spell slot you expect, which is very confusing. I don't understand why it's like this, but I think it's interesting that she's changing things back and forth. I think it's neat. I think it works for like programmery things.
Yeah,
that sounds
vaguely like code.
And also, if you cast a wizard spell as a ritual, you can use the spell's normal casting time rather than adding 10 minutes. So, like, basically, you get an extra spell slot if it's a ritual casting spell. But you can only do it once per long rest. So that's neat for Order of the Scribes. And then the Seeker Warlock has a bunch of crazy shit. So at first level, you get this thing called Shielding Aurora, which is like, as a bonus action, you create this like whirling aurora of brilliant energy that swirls around you. And at the end of your turn, you get resistance to all damage, or until the end of your next turn. Sorry, you gain resistance to all damage types. And if there's a hostile creature within 10 feet of you, it takes radiant damage equal to your Warlock level and your Charisma modifier, which would be 11 points of damage, which is pretty cool for just standing there. And then she also gets Astral Refuge, which means that as an action, she can just bip to the astral plane. And so she can take like 2 actions of casting spells that target only you. So like basically you can pop over, do like buff yourself and do like spell stuff and then come back, which I think is neat. Not terribly
kind of a dick move for everybody else in your party. But
like you're gone for a full round and like, I've got my self protector. What are you doing? So those are the big things she can do. That she also gets Featherfall, Jump, Levitate, Locate Object, Clairvoyance, Sending, Arcane Eye, and Locate Creature, without it like counting against the spells that she already knows as a Warlock, which is insane. And then more nonsense appears because I didn't count how many spells I have, but it's a ton. And I only have 5 spell slots. 3 of which are first level because I'm a level 2 wizard. So there's a whole bunch of knowledge and only this much energy to use it, which kind of makes sense to me. I think that's very interesting. I also have 9 cantrips. So we went with, let's see, good ones. Mage Hand, because I think that would be helpful if you you're doing math and you need an extra hand to do math.
Oh man, how cool would that be? You're like going to the chalkboard and you're like in a lecture hall in front of a bunch of people and you're for some reason scribbling math with 2 hands and you're like, but wait, there's more. Third hand sprouts out. Ah!
Yes, that is exactly what I was thinking it would be like. I also gave her True Strike because I thought it would be useful for like, I'm gonna True Strike that math. As well as guidance to guide me to better math.
I don't know how you do it, but
I don't. That's what I do. I do simple math very well. Fractions and I are very good friends. I can build things with very simple math. Anything else? No. That's too much for my small tired brain. what else did I give her? Charm person, illusory script, identify, unseen servant. I gave her ray of sickness because I felt bad with her not having anything to protect herself, and I was like, ray of sickness makes sense because she was sick a lot and she's inflicting it on other people. Sure.
So are you implying that she's just walking around vomiting on people?
Who's to say? It's the 1800s. Everything smells terrible. I also gave her invisibility, tongues, suggestion, ray of enfeeblement for the same reason, banishment because I thought it fit well with the astral refuge thing, dispel magic, counterspell, hypnotic pattern, all very like support cool stuff. And then of course I gave her Eldritch Blast because I literally physically cannot make a warlock without giving them Eldritch Blast. It's not
Just so you can say Eldritch Blast.
exactly, because it's fun. Eldritch Blast is fun to say. And then she has also Invocations, which is I gave her Book of Ancient Secrets, which so because of Book of Ancient Secrets, and because she's a wizard, she got to add like 4 extra spells to the ones that she wouldn't have. Like I logically should not have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. I shouldn't have 26 spells at my disposal for 5 spell slots, but here we are.
That's what you get with a Warlock Wizard multi-class.
Book of Ancient Secrets, which so if the Awakened spellbook is Phrenology, Book of Ancient Secrets is her notes on the article. I gave her Devil's Sight, which gives her sight in any darkness, magical or non-magical, because why would you stop doing math just because it's dark? Eyes of the Rune Keeper, I have to look up again because my brain forgot. Excuse me one moment while I grab my handy-dandy book. Hello, friend. Eyes of the Rune Keeper is something to do with reading. I think it's that you can read anything, if I'm remembering correctly.
Well, that sounds right.
You can read all writing. Yep, that's what it is. Agonizing Blast because charisma added to Eldritch Blast, just so she's at least a little bit playable. She's not terribly playable, but if she was, that's maybe a way to help. And then Ascendant Step, which allows her to cast Levitate on herself without expending a spell slot, just so she can fly like she always wanted to as a kid.
Aww.
And then her hit points are 35. She has 35 hit points.
No, you edged out a little bit higher than me. That's all you need.
Yeah, and that's pretty much all of her cool stuff. She, like I said, not a terribly playable character, but fun to build.
Hey,
I'm happy with it.
Hey, play smart, not hard.
Exactly. And if you can't play smart, keep playing anyway because it's fun.
But maybe like a barbarian or something.
Yeah. Next time we'll play a barbarian. When you inevitably die, play a barbarian. Yeah, but that's about it for this week of Heroes You Should Know. Aaron, my friend, thank you for joining me and explaining math things where I failed to.
Thank you for having me. And I'm sorry I didn't know more about Bernoulli numbers.
That's honestly, the fact that you even had a passing understanding of what they were before looking them up is impressive to me. So I can't judge you. I have no idea what Bernoulli's numbers are. Even now, we just talked about it, and I'm still like, it's numbers that exist in a lot of places. Cool.
There, you got it. You nailed it.
That's it.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
That's all.
Is there anything you would like to plug, my friend, or talk about before we say our goodbyes?
Nope. Other than that, we're on a little bit of a hiatus from releasing Ashoka episodes this month, but we'll be back roaring soon.
Yes, back in May. But you can join us every week for lots of other content and nonsense from us. This Friday, we're going to be having a pretty chill little game night with us. We'll be streaming it on Twitch. We'll be playing some Jackbox games, taking a breath, taking a little bit of time to breathe for ourselves and enjoy each other's company and each other's friendship and game times.
Just disclaimer, it will not be chill and none of us will be breathing.
No, none of us, literally none of us are chill. None of us breathe ever. But we have the illusion of it. And then, as always, on Monday, watch Aaron play a video game. Are you still doing Arkham?
Nope.
I missed.
I finished Arkham. I finished
I'm
it.
so proud of you. I'm sorry I missed it.
It was okay. It was hard. It was the biggest accomplishment of my life. But we're doing Assassin's Creed 3 now, which is very
Woo!
history focused.
Hell
If you
yeah.
like the American Revolution,
Very neat. Very
come
neat.
watch me make fun of a bunch of characters in it.
Love it. Yes, Aaron's doing that. We'll have Surge and Ironsworn back next week. I believe Caleb is joining him.
Mm-hmm.
In 2 weeks, I'll be back with another friend and another historical figure you should know. And Fridays, we're gonna have a couple one shots. We're gonna have a couple chill game nights. We're gonna see what happens. It's gonna be a good time no matter what. And thank you for joining us for Heroes You Should Know. I really appreciate y'all being here and hearing about some nerdy folks. Yeah, have a good evening, friends. Take care of yourselves. Good night.
Bye. Okay, you're off later.
Yay! Thank you for joining me and also running all of that, buddy. I'm glad. I talked a lot, and I hope I left. I am very glad you were here to talk about Math Lady with me. And yeah. You take it easy for the rest of your evening, my friend. I forgot the microphone. God damn it. You just got tiny cut. Alright, good night, buddy. I love you. I'll see you later.